Hi guys, I hope you're well and welcome to episode 148 of the Layton Fitness Podcast. So in this specific episode we'll be discussing 3 tips to help manage hunger more effectively within the context of a fat loss phase. And this can really become a big problem within the fat loss phase. This is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, people go off track, they give up, or they just completely stop training or following any sort of nutrition plan. I think the first reason would be lack of results, getting discouraged and then giving up. I think the second reason is not being able to deal with hunger within the fat loss phase, and therefore people are binging, going off track, and ultimately not achieving their fat loss goals. And these 3 tips will help massively. This is what I personally do within the context of a fat loss phase, and this is what I tell my coaching clients and personal training clients to do as well. And one of the tips in particular is quite counterintuitive, and I'm going to share that specific tip with you now, and that is to basically move more of your calories later in the day. This will help tremendously. One of the biggest reasons for this is most people are typically more hungry later in the day as opposed to the morning, and as a result, by placing more of your calories later in the day when you're more hungry can really help to blunt hunger, and then you're having less calories earlier in the day when you're not as hungry. This can really help for a few reasons. Firstly, it plays almost a psychological trick on you because you're having so much more calories in the evening. You don't really think you're dieting because you may be having bigger meals than when you're just in a maintenance phase because you've had less calories earlier in the day. The second big reason is obviously you're having more calories when you're more hungry, and this can help significantly within the context of fat loss phase. This is what I do personally. This is what I tell my coaching clients and personal training clients to do as well. Additionally, it's really important to note that it doesn't matter if you're having more calories later in the day in terms of fat loss. Some of you may be fearful having more calories later in the day because you think these calories are going to be stored as body fat. But also you need to realize that the fat loss is created via a calorie deficit. That calorie deficit is achieved at the end of the day, week and month, over a chronic period of time. So it's all about that energy balance. Are you burning more calories than you're consuming over a prolonged period of time? So as long as you're still within your calorie targets at the end of the day, then you can still have more calories later in the day, and it's not going to have a detrimental impact on your fat loss progress. The second tip is to focus on having more fibrous vegetables. This is a huge one. Firstly, you just need to realize that fibrous vegetables are obviously higher in fiber, and that helps keep you fuller for longer. But in addition to that, you can have a lot of vegetables without making a significant dent into your calorie targets, and therefore you can really fill up your plate with a significant number of vegetables without making a big dent into your calorie targets, and therefore you can ultimately eat more of these, and that can also play a psychological trick on you because you think you're actually eating more calories than you are. So that would be my suggestion. Every single meal, trying to stock up as many fibrous vegetables as possible, and that will just allow you to keep you fuller for longer, but also allows you to have more food without making a significant dent into your calorie targets. The final tip I want to share with you is trying to focus more on higher volume foods. Similar to what I was just mentioning about the fibrous vegetables, by trying to have the majority of your food intake from single ingredient whole food, these foods are typically higher in total volume. So what I mean by volume is the amount of food in comparison to calories. So for example, if you had 200 calories of a sugary bar versus 200 calories of a whole food source, you're going to be able to eat much more of the whole food option. That can make a huge difference in terms of satiation within the context of the fat loss phase, and again, it makes you think you're eating more calories than you actually are, whereas if you just solely relied on more processed food within the fat loss phase, you end up just not eating that much total food, even though the calories will be equal to having more single ingredient whole foods where the volume is just much higher. So that you really do need to think about, especially towards the end of the fat loss phase when your calories are low, especially for example lightweight females, trying to be picky with your food sources, trying to choose food sources just higher in volume, so good quality protein sources of carbohydrates and fats. Single ingredient whole foods, typically these foods are just higher in total volume. That's not to say you can't have a small amount of processed food in moderation within the fat loss phase, but ultimately by having most of your intake from whole food, it's just going to allow you to have more volume, therefore again It helps with satiation, and also just psychologically it makes you feel like you're eating more food than you actually are. So hopefully these 3 tips have helped. This has helped me massively within fat loss phase as well as my clients as well. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download that immediately, and that will teach you how to set nutrition targets suitable for fat loss or muscle building, and also how to make changes when you reach your fat loss plateau. I look forward to speaking to you next week. If you're still yet to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you do, so then you don't miss a episode, as these come out every single week. Thank you very much.